Well, hey there, Fox River friends and family and anybody else who might be watching. My name is Jason, and I am coming to you from my basement where I've been working, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And we thought we'd bring you something tonight pretty special. We're going to be talking with Brian and Rachel Weed. You may recognize those names from hearing about Fox River Missions. Brian and Rachel serve in Nicaragua, and they've been partners of ours for quite a while. And if you've been following along online with our church services online, you know that we're in a sermon series right now called Disrupted. And we're talking about the disruptions that we're all facing right now during this global pandemic. And so we thought we would spend some time talking with Brian and Rachel and hearing about the disruptions that they face in their lives and how that's affected them and their ministry and how they've been able to use the disruption they've experienced to move forward walking with God. So how you doing, Brian? How you doing, Rachel?
We're doing great. Thank you for inviting us to Waukesha, Wisconsin.
You're very welcome. We're happy to have you with us. So I guess we'll kick it off and get right to it. Besides the current, coronavirus pandemic that we're certainly all hyper-focused on, can you tell us about some other disruptions that you have faced in your lives?
Disruptions for us have been many, if you allow that to be the focus. When we first got to the mission field in the early 2000s, the Socialist or Communist Party was really, they weren't in power. They still were in existence. The Sandinista Party was there, but they wanted power and their people wanted power. So we would try to go somewhere and buses were being burned, roadblocks were out, cars were pulled over. Tires would be laid out across the roads and you couldn't get through that direction. You'd have to turn around and go another way. We've had robberies face to face, right at the Managua Church, held at gunpoint. Rachel recently reminded me of the earthquakes. The earthquakes were crazy. We were getting some 6-pointers where you'd go rushing out of the house so the house wouldn't fall on you. That was a negative effect. That was a disruption. In fact, it shut down our girls' school for 3 weeks? Mm-hmm. So 3 weeks, instead of snow days, perhaps like you get, we had earthquake days, tremor days. Wow. And so the girls would have to study by long distance like they're doing now because of COVID-19. They were studying by distance because of earthquakes. Then the attempted coup of the U.S. side in Nicaragua against the socialist side, the Sandinistas, who are in power. There's been roadblocks. There were several months where it was dangerous to be out. We had to make sure we were in the house before a certain time. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd try to be home. There was times where we were worried about our people even being able to have access to food. And so, yeah, disruptions. We've had disruptions. But in all of it, God still moves and the church still moves forward.
For sure. Yeah. Wow, you're talking about disruptions and I can't even imagine some of the things you're talking about. I almost imagine that life in international missions is it just kind of comes with the territory, but thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing about some of those. So as you're facing those disruptions of robberies and coups and earthquakes and things, can you tell us a little bit about how have you seen those affect you guys personally? How the impact on your family? Obviously, you talked about your kids, studying remotely, and then also your ministries as well. Like how have those disruptions played into those?
Yeah, I would even default to Rachel while she's dealing with what's going on at home. I'm dealing with what's going on in the ministry. There's been times where I could only go out on the motorcycle because on the motorcycle I could get away in case there was an attempted robbery at one of the roadblocks and she was at home and trying to take care of the kids. So she'd probably do better than I can about how it affected the family.
Well, honestly, any disruption causes chaos, right? Just briefly. But you do have to just figure out new schedules. You have to figure out new ways to communicate with other people. We had to do homeschooling, and that's fun for some people, but not for everybody. Sometimes we can't make it to church, right? So we'd have to figure out how that looked. I remember there was one time we'd figure out how to get our students from our seminary back to their homes during a very intense part.
And then during that time we did that in the car, and we got caught in a roadblock for 3 hours while they were shooting orders off 10 feet from the car.
So being with your family and being with your staff, you have to just stop and realize, if I panic, if I lose control, if I worry, I'm going to cause all of them to do the same. So I think as a family and on our family, it just brought us closer together, number one. But number two, you just learn some very valuable lessons on how to handle these different issues. And we'll share a few, I'm sure, a few of the most valued, lessons that we've been able to learn throughout the whole 18 years that we've been in Nicaragua.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good segue. So what types of things have you learned about, about God, about how he works through disruptions, about yourselves, about the importance of your faith? What kind of things have these disruptions you're talking about brought about in you?
It really adapts you to
Mm,
s- to think strategically. You think in ministry everything's going to be the same all the time. You're going to win people to Christ. You're going to baptize them. You're going to do church. You're going to win people to Christ. You're going to baptize them. We're going to do church. Not in our case. In our case, ministry is ever changing. Whether it's a coup, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a mini revolution, whatever is happening in our world can change from day to day. Our ministry changes. We have to think about operations of a nonprofit organization in an aggressive environment. We've had to think about security to refocus our priorities, training and delegating others. All these are really, you don't realize it, but all of these are God things. These are things that God is preparing you to do for all situations, to trust others to do good, to trust others
mm,
to carry the torch. And realistically, at the end of the day, on the mission field, and when there's disruptions, that saying everything rises and falls on leadership, not true. Everything rises and falls on personal holiness and your relationship with God.
wow.
Because when you are up against the ropes, when you're getting bad from every direction, you have to be able to deal with fear. You have to be able to deal with uncertainty. You have to deal with vulnerability in an environment while at the same time seeking God. As we go to the grocery store here, the people are aggressive, and if somebody gets within 6 feet of them, they're having meltdowns. Okay, we as Christians, we don't have to react like that. We can react differently. We can think different. We can be different. And we can be, to use a bit of a cliche, we can be the light. We can be the light they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
I
true.
think looking in the past, we've realized that nothing has caught God off guard. He's
Mm,
not sitting on the throne thinking, wow, where did that come from? Didn't see that one coming. And if you can just picture him sitting there, you can realize he is in control. He knew COVID was coming. He knew we would have a month of earthquakes. He knew that we would have all these different things coming to disrupt our life. And so we don't have to worry. Worry never got us anything. So you just realize this will pass. God is still in control and he knows what's best for us.
amen. Amen to that. Well, I really appreciate both your time. I know that we have so much to learn from all the experiences, and I wish we could keep talking for hours and hours on end. But I'm sure you guys have other things to do. And so, any final thoughts before we sign off tonight?
I would say this, in times of fear and uncertainty, that's when faith increases. And remember the mission of the church. The last thing that Jesus had to say to his leadership team, and all of us, if we're a Christian, we're part of that leadership team.
Mm,
What did he give us in his last words before he took off for a couple thousand years? Because it must have been real important. If he was leaving for a couple thousand years and he had one last thing to say, it was to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Those are marching orders. And at times like these, they're not marching orders for the soldiers of the cross. Times like these, when everybody's living in fear and everything's a little bit dangerous and everything's a lot scary, it's not for the soldiers of the cross, it's for the special forces of the cross.
Mm-hmm.
So the special forces of the cross, the Christians that take it seriously, have to remember that the mission still stands. God is still on the throne. We still have marching orders. We still need to serve. We still need to tithe. We need to be involved. And Fox River Christian Church, you guys put us on the map. We have a medical center in the town of La Esmeralda that has reached out from that medical center to 12 other communities.
Mm-hmm.
The impact has been exponential. The impact has been something that other missionary organizations have wanted to follow. That was made possible because of Fox River. That was made possible by the vision of Guy Kahn. That was made possible by those that give to missions. And I'd just like to take this time to thank Fox River for making that happen.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I completely agree, and we say amen to everything you just said. We so appreciate what you're doing, the gospel that you're preaching, and the work that you're doing there. And again, just thanks so much for your time, and God bless you and stay safe.
God bless you guys.
All right. Thanks.